Hi, I'm Kathy. Welcome to the Colorful Homeschooler Podcast, where we parlay on productivity, personality, passions, education, and theory. I'm a lover of Jesus, a wife of 20 years, and a homeschool mama of 4 special needs boys who keep me constantly active. I'm so glad you're here to join me. Pull up a chair. There's space for you at this table. Welcome back, everybody. So, as we begin to think about our coming year, I wanted to go over this idea of choosing a word for your year. If you do this right, it can really add a depth of intentional living to your year that perhaps you haven't taken part in before. So just like I discussed in episode 2, Planning for the Holidays, having a word chosen can help give focus and clarity to your decisions. But how do you choose it? And then, how do you use it? When I first heard of this practice, it was 3 years ago, listening to a podcast about productivity on a run in the pitch dark time of 5 a.m. on a weekday morning. Can you see it? I've always been driven, focused, and disciplined, but I am also exceedingly hard on myself at times and can leave myself very little room for error. Can I get any amens? So this process really resonated with me. I found myself immediately captivated by trying to think of what my word would be, but I don't think in that first year I approached it very well. I hope I can share this practice with you in a way that keeps you from making the same mistakes I did. So how do you choose this word? Now, the number one thing I would tell you to do to start this is to get a quiet space and time. Now, if you're like me, maybe quiet spaces and times are really hard to come by, so perhaps you want to do it when you're exercising, or I'm a runner, so running in the dark. Now, this is possible, but it's not the best way to do this. Think about a coffee shop, or maybe waking up early one day. I read a book this year called The Gap and the Gain by Dan Sullivan, and it spoke about the recent research showing that creativity is actually primed when you first wake up, especially after a night of high-quality REM sleep. If you go the extra step of setting the intention the evening prior, right before you go to bed, so thinking, tomorrow I'm going to work on coming up with my word for the year, that actually helps the situation. It further sets up the brain for success. The belief amongst the psychologists who conducted the test was that even as you sleep, your brain is not only healing and resting from the day that just went by, but also preparing for the day that's to come. So if it's going over what's to be done the following day, it's automatically going to think in rest of the things that you just primed it for. I don't know how far I fully go down that rabbit hole, but I do know that I've seen this work for me. Let's think now you have your space and your unhurried time. May I gently suggest to ease your senses? Maybe some special music that helps you relax and focus, a candle or essential oils to place the best scent for you in the air, your Bible nearby, your previous year's journal, any art that truly hones your intentionality, anything that further develops that desire within you. Have your journal or a sketchbook with you to go through this exercise and be able to be free with it. Don't worry about how much you do or don't write down or draw. In these first steps, you almost want to treat it like a word salad exercise or a stream of consciousness. So I'm a Christian, and I would never want to set the intention for my entire year without consulting my Creator, who knows all things. So I always begin with prayer. Something within my prayer praises God for knowing all things. I ask Him for His guidance over this next year. I offer relinquished control over it. So I love control. I don't know how many of you out there are like that. So I think Jesus knows that for me, this is a really big deal. So when I offer Him control, I have to mean it. And then I ask Him to guide my mind and heart through the process for choosing my intentional word for the next year. Now I take out my pens. I like lovely colored ones because beauty has always helped me to focus. I ask myself some questions. Sometimes I even write the questions down to start my creativity flowing. Just that action of writing things down can begin to hone my focus. Also, writing it down gives you that time to plug into God. So it gives you that kind of quiet time in your brain when you're just copying something where you're priming your creativity and kind of plugging into the power source of the Lord. Now, look back over this past year. 2 or 3 podcasts from now, I will be guiding an end-of-year journal reflection session, but this is just a few questions to help hone in on your word. So, what do you want to see more of in this coming year? What did you achieve in this past year? What qualities drove those achievements? What characteristic in your own life were you most proud of this year? Where could you use the most growth in the future? So a big one for me is always to picture myself at the end of this year. I pretend someone asks me, well, how did this year go? And I answer, great. So I ask myself, why? What qualities made the year great? How would I be able to answer this question? What happened that would make me answer it this way? And I journal freeform the answer to these questions. Now, personally, I'm not someone who uses a timer for this normally, but the practice of using a timer is strong and has many followers. So try it both ways the first time. Set yourself a timer if this will help you not to get lost in any one step of this, but don't if it will make you feel constricted. As you answer these questions, are you writing it out in sentence form? I tend to. So if so, the next step would be to go through and highlight. Yes, that's right, with an actual highlighter or a different colored pen to underline. Highlight the adjectives throughout your sentences and transfer them to their own list. For example, in the achievement section, if you wrote, I was able to discipline my children with more love and kindness this year while still being firm. So I would pull out discipline, love, kindness, firm. This is not the time to edit. You aren't pulling them out and discarding immediately and not writing it down because you're thinking of how you can't use this one. In my last example, perhaps firm would send the wrong message to your year, and you already know that. So you're thinking a couple steps ahead and self-editing. Don't do that. It doesn't matter at this point. Write it down. So now with this list, I try to have around 10 to 20 words on there. Pull out that highlighter again, or stickers, or that darker pen, and pull out 3 words out of this list that really speak to you. Some qualities this word should have as you begin to think this through. This should be in no way a goal. We'll be going over goals in a future podcast as far as your goals for this year. It's not a word that speaks about your goals. It should actually be done before you begin writing up and choosing your goals, which is why I recorded this podcast first. This should be the trunk of the tree on which the branches of your big and small decisions will grow. This word should not be performance-focused. It shouldn't be about an accomplishment or an end goal. As a homeschool mama, I was one of those who did art projects with my kids on a semi-regular basis. We have a lot of paintings and sketches and guided collages to hang for different seasons on our kitchen cabinets. They make me feel like I've, in some small ways, led a life well lived some of the time. I bring this up because there are 2 types of art. You've probably heard this before, but I'll go over it. There is process-focused art and product-focused art. So the process art is all about the creativity, the discovery, the learning through the doing. The product art is all about the finished piece. If you are doing a copy of a masterpiece and you focus on how it needs to look exactly like the original work, that is product-focused. That is a product-focused goal. If you are focused on learning how that master drew his or her lines, how did they blend their colors, learning how do you enjoy doing these same things to make something that looks like the original piece, This is process-focused art. Why am I talking about this? Because your word should be a piece of process-focused art. It isn't to try to get any product or external accomplishment. This is for internal navigation. It's a compass, not a map. A final note on the qualities the word should have. As I discussed in episode 1 on goal setting, this word needs to be specific. For me, something like the word self-care, that may not work because I don't know how that would guide me. For someone, this word may work. Don't focus on the specifics of my words, but for me, it isn't specific enough. I'll go over my last year's word in a little while. Now, let's return to our question of the end of the year. What made it a great year, if you're able to say that? Do any of the words that you've highlighted, those 1 through 3 words, do any of them match up with the sentiments that would make it a great year for you? If there's a direct correlation, that's today's winner. But sit with it for a day or two. Pray continuously. Does it feel right? Does this direction for your year seem like it will fit what you want for the year? Does it inspire you? Can you feel this word? Do your 5 senses ignite with the possibility of it? Can you picture it when you close your eyes? Now, don't be afraid to use a thesaurus. If you know the word is right, but perhaps feel like there's more specificity that you want, or maybe the word is almost right, like the color is almost there in a painting. Use that Roget's. Don't wall yourself in with any rules, like I need to get this huge burst of one word, and that means it's from the Lord. I'll share later about some personal experiences, but there are no rules in this practice. If you choose a word, for example, like wild, but you answered your year-end great question as I had a ton of time to sit and reflect and grow in my poetry writing. That may not be the best fit. Or for you, you may see an absolute fireworks show of how that lights you up. This is a very personal journey. I'm only giving you the scaffolding to hang your own personal experience on. Make it your own. If it continues to feel right, that's your word. Leave behind your questioning and embrace confidence with it. If you notice an extreme disconnect, go through the exercise again. Choose one of the other 2 words. Pray some more. Read some poetry. Listen to great music. Journal, sketch, create. This word is in you. The Lord has this direction for you. Listen for it. He will give it to you. Okay, so let's accept that you've gotten the word hammered out. So what on earth do you do with it? First off, you want it to be in front of and around you on a pretty constant basis. I like to get jewelry inscribed with it. My church's ladies ministry does a word bracelet day, and I get mine stamped on such a bracelet. I'm linking a very similar one in the show notes for you. You can, in addition to this, write it out on sticky notes and put it around your house. I have mine decoratively written out in my laundry room, where I know I will go several times every day. I know a friend who creates art with it and puts it on her phone's lock screen. Tell me you won't see that constantly with how much we all look at our phones. For those of you new to this practice, you may be saying, okay, great, but why? So, I spoke before about setting intentionality and clarity for your year. Intentionality means the act of being deliberate or purposeful. And clarity means the quality of being coherent and intelligible, lucid, purity. So this is the use of your word of the year, to help you to be deliberate in decisions throughout the year, that those decisions will be made from a place that is purely you. Lucidity creates that ease of understanding. When decisions crop up, use this word to guide you. So let me share some examples with you. Let's go back to that word, wild. If I'm an artist and I choose wild, might I select a new medium? Maybe new colors, bolder, more defined? Might I even bring new experiences to myself? Make sure to seek out crazy things that maybe scare me a little. I can feel that word. It is inspiring. Here's another more personal story. Last year, my word was nascent. I'm a doula, a homeschool mom, a wife, a Christian, so many other things. This word means just coming into existence and beginning to show signs of future potential. The word I got through prayer and the exercises that I shared with you was birth, but that wasn't specific enough for me. I spent a few days with it and I could tell it wasn't quite right. So I pulled out my incredibly tattered Roget's Blue Thesaurus that I've had since high school and I looked up birth. I tried on a few of the synonyms over a few days, but not until nascent did I know my word. Like I said before, fireworks. I could feel it. It inspired me. So the year started off strong. I was purposeful. I was doing well on many goals. But I hit a wall mid-year. I was deeply saddened by some personal situations and a feeling of hopelessness. And I stalled out on many of my goals. But I still wore my word bracelet. There were actually a few times where I got angry at my word. Birth. Nascent. What was birthing out of me at this time? Why would God give me a word that suggests something explosive in me? But He knows. I still allowed my word to guide decisions, to inspire through the difficulty. Then on a camping trip, we hike and camp a lot. I was in a quiet glen in the redwoods, and the nurse tree brought me back the nascent ideal. This tree, dead for so long, is birthing so many wonderful things, beautiful things, beauty from ashes. Google some images of nurse trees in the redwoods. They're incredible. There are these fallen redwoods that have begun to decay, but are covered with all different life forms that have grown off of their decay, off of their pain, their death. So through guiding decisions, through allowing it to inspire me in nature, through the Lord consistently bringing it up in inconvenient but highly efficacious ways, my word shaped my year. When decisions started to bubble up about finally beginning this podcast I had wanted to begin for 2 years, I thought of my word much more than once. For example, when having to put my name out there and ask people to listen, I'm not one who loves to do that at all. But in certain situations, I thought of my word. How do I bring about this explosive birth? Out of the choices in front of me, which causes something new to come into existence for me? And I would do that thing. Another note, my meaning from the beginning of the year to now has changed. In the beginning of the year, I journaled how it had to do with the difficulty of birth, the long, dark tunnel that the baby journeys down, and how there is light and life on the other side. There is a passage. Last year was an extremely rough one for my family and I in so many ways, so it had to do at the beginning of the year with the emergence from the darkness of that into the light of newness. But now, year end upon us, it means something else. The word grew with me, as any well-chosen word should. There was emergence. As I begin the process of choosing this year's word along with you, my listeners, I have silent expectation of what word this year will hold. I am already praying for that guidance and openness to the Lord's vision for my year. It was so right on last year and has been in years past. One more guiding principle, friends. This may seem like a fun project to do with others, but I caution you. I don't ask anyone but God's input on my word of the year. As I said before, this is a very personal journey. Let me share a short history story with you. There's a little town in the southeastern part of Portugal, Myrtola. It was once known as the last port of the Mediterranean, but up until 1974, a conservative authoritarian rule focused only on the area's Roman history, neglecting its very real Arab history due to the conquering invaders beginning in 711 AD. In 1977, some pottery fragments were found by children playing on a hilltop, beginning a rediscovery of the Moorish influence. The town has now converted itself into a living museum and applied for World Heritage Site classification. Roman ruins exist alongside and within Moorish ones, influences from both permeating the culture. But the founding mythology, due to centuries of neglect and one-sided focus, told a story of solely Christian kings. The history is modeled and, unfortunately, a little ugly, but the Moorish influence is beautiful and leads to gorgeous artistic influence and heirloom creation techniques only known in this section of the world. For too long, an authoritarian ruler told Myrtola what they were, labeled them what he wanted them to be, and ignored the rest. Don't let anyone else tell you who you should be this year. Don't let anyone else have that much control over your guiding decision principle. This is for you and the Lord. The Lord won't ignore any part of you just so he can get what he wants. I hope this will be helpful for you this year. If you feel comfortable sharing your word, tell me on Instagram so we can all rejoice together, or even send me a private message. If you can just take a moment of time, please leave me 5 stars and a written review on whatever podcast app you're listening to. I would super appreciate this. It really helps the analytics on getting my podcast out to others. Share it with a friend whom you think it will help. I come out with new episodes every Tuesday, and I have some special ones planned in the next few weeks as we gear up for the coming year. Thank you again for joining me, friends, and remember, I believe in you.